Welcome to the IP2 podcast. I'm Shea Ashby, and as always, I'm joined by Felix Chung. We also have two special guests with us today, Adam Filipchuk and Andrew Padlesky.
Adam and Andrew are both multi-event winners within the Alberta FAB community and very formidable players with experience at multiple Tier 3 and Tier 4 level events. As of the time of this recording, in Constructed ELO, Andrew is 16th in Canada and Adam is 24th. And this is very notable because we really don't get nearly many as opportunities for these rated events here in Alberta. Adam is also first in Lifetime XP in Canada, and Andrew is 14th. And as a quick plug, Shea and I are side by side at 19th and 20th. Both are longtime players and pillars of the Alberta and Edmonton communities. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
We'll start with you, Andrew. How did you hear about FAB, or what got you into the game?
I was grinding Magic the Gathering pretty hard, and throughout that 2019, 2020, 2021, kind of just the enjoyment or the rate of success or just the direction they were taking the game, I didn't like it as much. And then I had a close friend of mine say that he heard all about Flesh and Blood on a podcast. The people playing the podcast gave that a shot, tried it, looked into the competitive circuit, the tournaments, the prizes, and just ranting and raving about it. So we just decided to jump in head first, spend all of our money, and just commit.
Nice. Awesome. How about you, Adam? How did you hear about Flesh and Blood, and how did you get into it?
So the way I actually hear about Flesh and Blood is at the time I'm kind of flirting with doing some financial stuff with Magic, and spending a lot of time on Channel Fireball's website, and they announced their partnership with LSS at the time. And I remember thinking, okay, if this game's whatever, this never heard of it before. If this game's big enough that Channel Fireball's kind of pulling this big trigger out of nowhere, there must be something here. Started looking into it initially from a financial perspective at that point, and that's kind of right around the Channel Fireball was kind of spearheading the North American Unlimited launch of the first three sets. Oh, and the second wave of Crucible First Edition. So yeah, started looking into things from a financial aspect there. Played a few games myself, started really enjoying the game, and then from there, just the rest just kind of unfolded.
Nice. You guys have both been part of multiple PQs, PTs, as well as I assume callings. Do you have some sort of highlight that you like to reminisce about, or one of your favorite moments? And we'll start with Adam for this one.
I have a couple that really come. I think one of the first big ones is winning the first Pro Quest in Alberta at Bento. Yeah. That was a fairly large Pro Quest, and I remember it was funny because I remember the day before I just gotten home from a ski trip. I didn't really have as much time to prepare for that event as I'd wanted to, and I remember having this thought of, I'm just going to scrub out and just kind of preparing myself with being okay with not trying to put myself down or anything, but just being okay with the idea of not doing well. And there's a few things went in my favor that day, but I also think I played some pretty clean games. And I remember that moment of, holy, I actually did it, in that moment of just proving myself I was able to even attain a feat like that. Of course, it's funny how looking back then now I'm like, and another way I'm like, yeah, but it was just a Pro Quest. There's so many bigger things, and it's funny how all things are relative.
Nice. How about you, Andrew? You have a favorite moment you like to share with us?
I really like all of the road trips to Calgary when we get the whole Alberta community into the same room, or when a bunch of Calgary is coming here. Or the first couple trips to Canadian Nationals. I think were so much fun. You just get to see so many people there that you know, and hang out and play so many games in the hotel or the lobbies, or just things like that with the road trips or the plane trips.
Yeah, Adam kind of touched on it when we were talking. He was talking about Skirmish Season 1. That was all online, and you heard these voices for over so many games and over so many tournaments that when we all finally got to go to those first Canadian Nationals, I think everybody here went to them. You finally got to put a face to the name that you've been.
To the hands.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a really exciting moment for myself as well. I'm with you in that. That was awesome to really see those people and kind of put all of the pieces together, the voice, the hands, and the person, and all the conversations that you might have even had, privately on the Discord and stuff like that. So Yeah, those were good times.
So did all three of you participate in Skirmish Season 1? Shea, Andrew?
I don't think so. I don't remember
Okay.
it.
Got it.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, Andrew, by the time you start playing with us around
It was August 2021.
It was right before Tails drops, right?
Yeah,
I believe
Monarch had been out for a bit.
Yeah, and we're fairly off the online scene at that point, I believe, in Ford. It was just the same. You would allow. Well, it's funny because I remember talking to you about this concept of playing online. You're like, "Ew, I don't want to do that," and I was like, "No, you don't get it. It's such an amazing experience." And I think if you'd had just a little bit of time with us on the, just on that weird little community we had, it was such a cool little thing.
Yeah, it was we always refer to it as like the Wild West of the Fab days, because you had people from all sorts of countries and time zones joining in tournaments, playing one game, dropping, moving to another tournament. It was so wild.
Yeah, and it's funny actually. I remember my first international skirmish, I should say. There was, and the reason I'm bringing this one up is another mutual friend of ours, Arthur. This is kind of our first bonding moment where it was a UK skirmish. I think it was Dark Realms, maybe, or Dark Sphere, something like that, Dark something. And it was, we had to get up at, I recall setting my alarm somewhere between like 2 or 3 in the morning for it, making coffee, one eye is barely open, sitting down at my computer, and I'm like, look out the window, it's dark, and then I see this Mr. Chocolates also in the same lobby, and I'm like, I think I recognize that name from the Canadian Discord. And then bing, I get a message, and it's from Arthur, and he goes, "What are we doing up at this hour?" And I just started laughing, and it's just such a fond memory of just like this unlikely interaction with now a very close friend who really lives just a few hours down the highway from me. And you never think that's going to happen when you just learn of a new card game, right? Like, and it just goes to show like how much more Flesh and Blood is than just a card game.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I mean, we're going to talk about this a lot more in depth later, but out of the 4 of us, then it looks like there's 2. So Shea and Shea and Adam that are, we'll call you boomers. And then there's Andrew and I who started at the same time. I don't think we're Zoomers, but we missed the Wild West era and right into the start of in-person play, right? So it's interesting that you have both perspectives. Before we delve more into the Fab topics, I guess just really, really generally speaking, just so we get to know you a little bit outside of Fab. I mean, what are a couple just highlights about yourselves as people outside of Fab? I guess, Andrew, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm obsessed with hockey, Edmonton Oilers. I'm a huge music fan. And then, I'm just always gaming. Other than that, definitely working, gaming, some school stuff, and hockey and music.
Man, yeah, fun fact about Andrew, I've never seen you not wear a hockey jersey. Like, I think at this point, there's just one, like, adhered to your body or something. Like, this man is always wearing a hockey jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Adam?
A little bit about myself. I'm well, first off, I'm actually I'm an advanced care paramedic by trade, working urban center for I'm a little over 10 years in the industry now. It's a blast. It's got its ups and downs, and yes, you do see some we'll say some interesting things, but despite that, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it's just from the perspective of just how fascinating emergency medicine and emergency preparedness response is. Beyond that, music's also a big part of my life. I've got my basement kitted out as this pseudo recording studio, and when I'm not building and painting minis or doing something Flesh and Blood related, or dabbling in some little fringe gaming thing of some sort, I'm doing something music related.
No, that's awesome. Thank you both for sharing that. And I guess going back to Andrew, you mentioned you're always gaming. What are you playing lately?
Lately, I've been everywhere this weekend. We've been playing some Rainbow Six Siege, some Stellaris, some of the new modes in League of Legends. But just real quick, I'll mention kind of the path that took me to competitive card games was
Sure.
in 1998 with my uncle babysitting me. He showed me StarCraft Brood War. I was probably 3 years old, and that was just the entrance to the rabbit hole. After that, I delved into every RTS game I could find. I figured out pretty quick that anything like Lord of the Rings genre or setting type of thing was just absolutely for me. So there was some Games Workshop, some Warcraft 3 for like 10 years, Battle for Middle Earth, just every game that took me to playing StarCraft 2 pretty competitively, took me to playing Magic in real life for over 10 years as competitively as I could. And then, like I mentioned, that kind of segued over to Flesh and Blood.
Wow, yeah, and I want so badly to just completely geek out with you about StarCraft Brood War here, but we have to try to stay on rails here, so maybe we'll chat about it offline here. But
Nice.
yeah, we'll move on to just a bit of a deeper dive. Maybe if Adam, you wanted to start us off by telling us about the community that you have locally in Edmonton. I mean, yeah, what's it like? How is it developed over the years?
Yeah, when we're in the heat of the pandemic and everything's shut down, there really was nothing going on in Edmonton, flesh and blood wise at the time. Now, there was myself and there's an L2 judge actually in Edmonton named Tyler Trudell. We were the two kind of active ones online on Discord. The pandemic starts to lift and we get to start playing in person. A second store, a store that is kind of one actually probably I think the biggest pillar for Flesh and Blood in the greater Edmonton area now. Dream Escape Gaming, Travis over there has put a lot of effort into awareness of the game and just creating a safe space for people to be able to enjoy and explore the game. But people are slowly coming and going. I think Andrew then comes in a couple months after that, and we had a couple other, I guess, OGs, if you will. Kevin being a notable one, Kevin Seward. He's through and through a diehard lover of the game, and just he loves showing up to armories and supporting the store. And just at the heart of when we really think of what the community really needs to be, that that engagement and that love to participate, that he is the embodiment of that. And then kind of over the next few months, we do see a few other people come in who really start to shape up the community as it is today. Brandon St. Amour, Kane Wilbur come to mind. Unfortunately, we went through this, and Andrew, I'm sure, remembers this as well. We went through this brief, unfortunate little phase where we got a little too competitive. And I think at that point, we stymied the growth of the community a little bit. We scared some people away. And I think we've since done a really good job of recognizing it though and trying to shift the culture a little bit, all while still like appreciating and respecting the competitive drive, but trying to respect all walks of TCG appreciation.
I definitely want to shout them out there in Leduc at Dream Escape Gaming, because recently he hosted a intro learn to play night, bring new people type of night. And then I definitely saw Kane, Brandon, Ethan bringing in just a whole squad of new players, giving them intro decks, showing up like 2 hours early, teaching everyone. I know Brandon's been bringing his younger brother out. I started bringing my younger brother out, and through that it's just been like really fun intro or blitz or learn to play nights with kind of a crowd of newer people that we can just teach and help out.
That's awesome to hear. I know you and I, Andrew, have spent a lot of time talking about what we can do, concepts and ideas on how to help grow the Edmonton community because of what Adam had kind of touched on about getting too competitive and potentially scaring new players away from the game. So something like this is super exciting to hear that that you guys and they're doing a Dream Escape to help bring that initiative of bringing new people into the game. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, what led to that recognition within your own community? Like, just to identify that problem, that this is the reason why maybe we're not getting the attendance or attracting people or maybe scaring people away. Like, I guess, how did that come about? I guess maybe Andrew, were you one of the people that were identifying
I
that?
was. It's kind of just a whole bunch of things coming together, a bunch of unlucky circumstances. We had a pretty unfortunate accident in the community with one of my close friends dying. And then right after that, it was also kind of a season where there wasn't really anything to grind for or play for. And so engagement just started dying through that. And then lots of people that were trying the game out for a little while or maybe pursuing it pretty competitively, they left to go and partake in other games. We had some people go back to Yu-Gi-Oh, some people go back to Magic, other people get busy with work life, family life, just kind of everything combining all at once really started to lead to so many events just not having enough people to fire, or maybe it's quite a rush for me to like get home from work, shower, change, eat as quick as possible, rush back to the city, rush hour, get there like 5 minutes late, and you have 4 people there. Makes it kind of tough to go out for that.
Yeah, and before we delve more into you two as players in FAB, just maybe to take a step back, tell us a little bit about Edmonton, just so our listeners have an idea about what kind of city it is, how big, what's it like. I mean, Andrew, you are the most patriotic Edmontonian I know, so maybe you're the right person to ask
Sure,
this.
man, put me on the spot. I don't know like Edmonton's population off the top of my head. I think it's like 1.2 million, but it's a pretty big city though, with a big ring road, and we have 4 to 5 LGSs hosting one armory a night on different nights of the week. And then generally speaking, you can come to these events and expect like 8 to 12 or 8 to 16 people there, and this all depends kind of on what the season looks like. If there's something really excited coming up, if it's skirmish season, or if there's RTNs around the corner, everyone seems to get more excited for that and start putting in the time, testing different decks, stuff like that. There's a pretty good mix too of CC and draft events. In any given week, I might be able to play CC 3 times and draft 2 times or something like that. All of the stores kind of have their own little rotational system, and then it's just kind of like blitz and sealed we don't see too much of.
We'll do a little bit of a deep dive now on your guys' FAB career. We'll start with Adam for this one. Can you tell us about your competitive aspirations in Flesh and Blood, and how has your approach to staying competitive evolved over the years?
Well, I remember pre-skirmish season 1, reading about there was this promise of there was supposed to be this, what we know today to be the $1 million competitive circuit of Flesh and Blood each year, and seeing, oh wait, there's something really cool here, and there's a really good game here, and there's a really good promise for maybe like a really cool, legitimate competitive outlet. All these things just kind of came together at the same time perfectly when I was looking for some new, what's the right word? I needed a new drive in my life with kind of where my life situations were. And yeah, it just all came together perfectly. I was like, I'm all in. I'm all in. I want to see where this Flesh and Blood competitive adventure leads. And from there, then, we get to the point of, really trying to test and elevate. And I look back at all these different little moments of like, these like level up moments, if you will, where it's like, oh, wow, like, learning to just see something in a new perspective in a way you never really thought of before, but all of a sudden it makes so much sense, and it's how could you have never thought of it that way before? And yeah, now at this point in my life, there's this element of I have such appreciation for this idea of just competing in mastery. You asked the question of how has that competitive drive changed, and whereas when I first got into it, it was, just this blind pursuit of excellence. I think there's certainly more maturity to the process now, and there's, competing professionally in Flesh and Blood, paid all the bills and whatever, and I was able to commit to it as a full-time job. It would be a different story, but at this point, it's how do I do this sustainably in such a way where I can, cover all the things that are important to me in my life, all while still endeavoring into Flesh and Blood, which is also important to me. That's the nutshell of the competitive Flesh and Blood experience.
Thanks for that. Transitioning the same question to you, Andrew. What do you hope to achieve in FAB in the near future, and how do you think you can get there?
I want to stand on a stage and lift a trophy up. And every time I've traveled to one of these big events, I've done a little bit better each time. So I think if I just keep putting myself in the position, if I can just play a whole event without making a mistake, I think I can get there. And kind of one of the realizations I've made every single one of these events too is the amount of time into kind of the prep and the homework and the planning. Um, I think every time I've kind of shown up on like the second best deck and been a little bit surprised by one thing or another at the event, or haven't had completely the right plan going into a certain matchup, and I'm always left feeling like, man, if I would have just brought in like these other 4 cards or something, I think I could have got there. That's a pretty frustrating feeling when you're finishing right in the middle of these big events.
Do you think if you were on the best deck at the time, you would have a different result or a similar result?
It's hard to tell, obviously, because I mean, if you win the first round that you lost, you play different people throughout the entire rest of the day, probably. But yeah, a couple of the times, like the first Canadian Nationals, I showed up on Chain when half of the room was on Briar, and I played Briar 5 times in a row, and I went 2-3 against them.
Yeah.
And the Pro Tour in New Jersey, I traveled to pretty close after that. I was on Chain when a huge chunk of the room was on Starvo, and I did not have the sweet Chain deck that Pablo Pintor had with the pretty cool plans he had to never close the combat chain.
Right.
So certain things like that, I kind of wish, for the next event, I want to be ready. I want to see all of the decks that people have cracked and figured out and think are the best, and kind of make my decision from there, rather than being a little bit late to the party every time.
Perfect. We'll stay with you, Andrew, on this one. You guys have both been to the U.S. multiple times, and as well as France for PT2. When you started this game, did you envision yourself traveling like this?
Well, with Magic, I had already traveled quite a few times. There was a couple Portland Grand Prix and a Pro Tour qualifying event in San Diego, as well as lots of road trips around Canada or, to Calgary or things like that. So I knew starting this game, the amount that I loved it, the amount that I was committing and jumping in headfirst, I'd definitely travel as much as I could to things where I can just, pay to enter, go play the equivalent to Grand Prix, the Callings and Flesh and Blood. But no, I did not envision that I would just qualify for the first 3 Pro Tours right away.
Right. Now, how about you, Adam? Was it something that you thought would happen or would even do?
I was flirting with this idea of those travel opportunities could be there. So in the one sense, yeah, like I said, when I decided to put the car in gear and go, yes, we're pursuing Flesh and Blood. We're going to try to do this competitively. Just like Andrew makes the comment of, I want to see myself on a stage lifting a trophy. I told myself, I want to see myself on that pro stage. I want to see, not like, I didn't mean like the winning stage, but it was this pro stage. I want to compete in that circuit. And so the want was there. And I remember the first goal was just, okay, qualify for Pro Tour 1. That's all, let's wait till it gets announced and let's just focus on qualifying for it. But at the time it was just this fleeting idea of, can we make that happen? There's no way we can keep it going. And to that point, like looking back on it now and being able to say I got to compete at every Pro Tour plus Worlds. No, I never, at this point in my career, I never thought that would be the case. And I'm truly grateful that I have had that opportunity.
No, thanks a lot for that. Before we move on, I am curious, going back to you, Andrew, you mentioned that you have traveled in the past for Magic. Were you also like one of the, I mean, in FAB, I think of you as probably like one of the best or the best player in Alberta, certainly one of the best in Canada, by ELO or others. Like, was that also your standing in Magic, or have you achieved greater success now in FAB than you achieved in Magic at your peak there?
Yeah, not at all in Magic. I was wildly inconsistent, and I was making a new deck every second week, and I was playing all the formats, and I don't know. There's kind of a bit of RNG in Magic as well. I don't know. I'd have some big wins and then not for a long time. I know for a while Magic was tracking wins on kind of an XP leaderboard as well. And there was one season where I finished rank 1 in Alberta. I was very proud of that. But I was never able to join a big or large Magic event and then finish in the top 8, like a face-to-face event or any of the Grand Prix I traveled to or anything like that. Kind of the highest achievement I had in Magic, I think, was 2018. I went to Grand Prix Portland and I played a Pro Tour qualifier kind of side event with like 125 people or something in Pioneer, and I got top 4 playing Spirits.
Nice.
So the next question that I'm actually very curious about for the both of you is, both of you have a lot of experience at high level competitions. You're excellent players as well for both of you, and you have results. Do you feel that puts you in a position of leadership within your community? Do you feel that people look up to you in a certain way, and is that a kind of pressure that you welcome, or is that something that you wish people would look towards others as well? I guess Andrew, if we could start with you on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the word leadership scares me. I definitely don't like any sort of responsibility or leader or team captain. Even in the video games, I don't want to be the party leader. I don't want to make the decisions. I don't want to carry the bomb to the site. But aside from that, I absolutely love whenever people want to ask me questions, be it about experience at these big events or what they should do to prepare, or just how good I think a card might be, or even like little judge questions or etiquette, or what they should expect at their first event. I do love answering questions genuinely, and I love teaching people, but kind of the beacon or title of like leader or team captain or anything like that, it spooks me out a little bit.
Is it just the title that spooks you? Because a lot of those things that you mentioned that you like doing, those are traits of, I guess, typically those are leadership qualities.
Yeah, but just let me do it from the shadows. Don't tell anyone I'm the leader.
I think the prospect of being the one that's putting themselves out there first is what's the daunting task in being a leader. And I think a lot of people think that they have to be a go-getter, going out and setting events up, or being that front line or that first speaker in an event. And it sounds like where Andrew really likes to flourish is when somebody gets to approach him and then he can tackle that specific task that they're asking him about, which definitely can be seen as a leadership thing. I think that it's that concept of going out and engaging the community first that I think is what's the terrifying part.
Yeah, no, I guess Shea, sorry, Adam, before we throw to you, one of the best quotes that I ever heard about leadership, and I forget who it was that told me, is when the greatest leaders are done, the people will look to each other and say, we did this ourselves. And I definitely resonate with the concept, that the leadership, it's often a poor leader that says, I'm in charge, I'm the boss, look to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the very best leaders will let their actions do the talking. They're not necessarily the ones planting a flag and making all these grand speeches and all that. So yeah, I guess just don't count yourself down there, Andrew. Sorry, Adam. We'll go to you.
No, it's actually, I had a little bit of a thought kind of to add to what you and Shea just said, and specifically off what you just said, Felix. I think you highlighted in part the idea of kind of what I've thought of as being a true leader versus kind of being more of a boss, where like I don't know if we've all seen the meme or whatever at this point of like, the distinction between the two, where a leader truly leads, they're in front, leading with action, and they're not saying, look at me, but they're just saying, this is what needs to be done, so I'm going to do it, versus, the boss who's like, you do more, you do that, whatever. I think that's an interesting distinction. But also the other part that came to mind off Shea was saying, I think there's even a distinction too of this. For me, this idea of hubris comes to mind, where I know for me, I struggled with for a while the idea of bringing this undue attention onto myself from this perspective of, I didn't want to tell people or imply this idea of, being pompous or something, that you should listen to me because I know. I always thought, there's always going to be someone that knows better or something like that. And in turn, for a while, this idea of being a leader to me was this really foreign thing, because I was like, there's no way I can be this person that could be in a position of having the knowledge or wisdom to be a leader effectively. At this point, what for me being a leader is just being someone who can help show the way, help show, when you see a new person in the store and show them that, hey, this is a welcoming place. This is a safe space. Hey, this is where you can, we'd love for you to join, the Alberta Discord and be a part of that community, and just finding those little ways to engage now without, to Andrew's point, looking to shine the spotlight on me. 'Cause at no point is it ever about that.
No, thank you so much for hearing that, or for telling us about that. And I guess just to pull on that thread a little bit, I mean, just small things like that. When you hear that a store is about to pick up the game, was it just you hearing about it and just out of your own volition, showed up and explained, how that works, just out of a desire to grow the game? Is that how it went down?
At that point for me, yeah, that's what it was. We're a small community. We're locked in because of the pandemic, and I was just kind of locked in this idea of Canada community. We have Canada community. We don't need anything else. And I remember Thomas sends me an invite to the Alberta Discord and goes, hey, I'm trying something. And my first thought, it wasn't like a negative thought, but it was just I was caught off guard because I was like, but we have Canada community. We don't need this. And I, once again, never could have fathomed that community growing to what it is today of, I think we're over 250. We're pushing 300, I think. At first, it never registered on me. And it was that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, there are smaller hubs and smaller, I don't want to say mountains to be conquered, but there's other places where we can put in the work and target attention to foster community. And I think that was at the moment where I can be a factor in making all this happen, or not making it happen, but aiding it in happening, I should say. Yeah, at that point.
I had a similar thought process to you, Adam, when I got the invite from Thomas. I was like, I don't need this Discord. I don't want to be part of another Discord. I kind of semi-reluctantly joined it. And as time got on, I spend 99.9% of my time in the Alberta Discord now, cultivating and being part of that community, because these are the people that I see every day now that we're no longer doing those online tournaments. And this is the community that I want to focus my time on. And so I kind of don't really visit the Canadian Discord as much as I used to, because I can only spend so much time in either place, and kind of this is where I choose to. So I kind of felt similar to you in that regard when, like I said, we got that invite from Thomas as well.
Yeah, and it's funny how that perspective changes.
Yeah, at the end of the day, our communities can only be so large before you get lost in a sea of people. And I'm sure at the time when the Canadian community was only 100 people large and it was skirmish season 1 and you were playing against these people every week, then sure, that's your people, right? Those are your people. But things change, and now we're very lucky, and maybe one day the Alberta community, Calgary and Edmonton, will grow so big that we'll need to split the Alberta Discord. I mean, who knows? I mean, it sounds horrible right now, but at a certain point, maybe things get so busy that who knows? There's a maximum size to anything. But I guess speaking of Alberta and zeroing in on the Battle of Alberta, which in the FAB world really started as the massacre of Calgary by Edmontonians, specifically Andrew, Adam, and Brandon just coming in to beat us up and take our lunch money, I guess.
And one dude from Vancouver.
Oh
yeah, Potato 1-1. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, is that rivalry?
You know what? Honorable mention to you guys, Calgary. I believe the finalist against Potato was
Tarek.
on Beatdown Heralds.
Or Tarek, not Tarek Patel, but a different Tarek.
But I guess so. I mean, for a little bit of context, I mean, getting beat up for long enough that is a motivating factor, at least for me. Did the Battle of Alberta or regional rivalries in any way motivate you early on in FAB? Did it add anything to your experience with FAB, and does it continue to? I guess, Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. There was always, a small drive towards, once we kind of, for myself, I recognize once there was, I don't want to say this dominance, but we established that, hey, we could hold our own here up north. Of course, there was always, there's some desire to maintain that. With that being said, I think for me, I always recognize the Battle of Alberta for us as kind of this. I did see it as a fun rivalry because, even then, by no means did I never viewed any of you as any kind of subpar opponents. I think there was very much some luck in our favor in some of those early events too. Above all else, the pendulum swings both ways, and since then, you guys have, and Felix, you especially, have done such a good job of spearheading some of that competitive drive, all while still supporting community. For me, all things above all else, it has been a fun rivalry, and I've definitely enjoyed viewing it as such. At this point, I view myself, if anything, as kind of like the. I don't know if I'm as. I keep saying I'm washed up. I don't know if I'm actually washed up, but it's. I see the compete level raising just above the board in Alberta, and even in Edmonton, it's coming up, and I think over time we're going to see lots of people enter the realm of tier 2 winners in Alberta, and I'm excited for that too.
Don't sell yourself short. You're a very competitive player and a strong opponent always, no matter what. But you touched on it. As time grows on, it's going to get more competitive as the game grows and more people take the game, and it is going to get exponentially harder to stay at the top. And this is a hobby. This is a fun project for all of us, and your life will allow and not allow for you to be in certain places in the competitive scene. So, I mean, you're not washed up. Maybe you're just in a little bit of a dip right now where you can't devote the time that you want to devote to it, but you're always a threat when you sit down at the table.
Yeah, totally fair. But to that point, so are you guys. There's a lot of people I'm scared of in the in our big Alberta rooms at this point.
And Andrew, how about you? For, I guess, within FAB, we can talk about the hockey battle of Alberta in a bit, but for FAB, did that early, or did you feel a sense of early rivalry, or was it more just individuals and taking it one game at a time?
I love the FAB Battle of Alberta, and early on we were sitting so high on the wave in my boat. After me, Adam and Brandon, we had Devin and Laurel and Jeff and some other people that I'm probably forgetting to mention that have since gone off on their own ways there. But they were top 8ing almost every event along with us, and so there was a couple times early on there where we had the whole top 4 of an event in Calgary, and that was so exciting. That was so much fun. And then since then, I think kind of the compete level and the passion, the amount of people on our side kind of dwindled off a little bit. And I know the last 2 events we got our butt kicked by you guys, and that has really reinvigorated the fire in me. And now I am Harry Potter back in the secret hiding room, and I'm training an army, and I can't wait for the next Calgary Edmonton events.
Harry Potter in his secret training room, training an army. Which movie is that one referencing? I don't know if I saw that one.
There's the 5th or the 6th movie where they don't have a defense against the dark arts teacher anymore. Yeah. And he finds some secret room that only they can get in. Yeah, he's just the defense against the dark arts teacher. Yeah.
You're right, I guess
actually. I'll do this myself. Yeah.
Yeah, we noticed a shift in the results at the top tables over the last few events, and a bunch of groups of people down here have been putting in their time, practicing a lot more. Internally, you could see the shift in how people were playing and practicing, and I think we were rewarded down here for the time that we started to put into, because we were tired of getting beat by you guys, and we really wanted to shift the sands in our favor.
Yep, I see it for sure. And there was just the 4 or 5 of Calgary people that were just in Baltimore as well. And they certainly put their work in for that. And I was playing with a couple of them and Thomas a lot for that event as well. And Yeah, I can see it. Everyone's just improving so much.
This is the stuff that really drives us, and really motivates us. It makes when I hear you say you're training an army, it makes me really excited. Like I know it's going to be a really tough competition coming up here, and maybe it's our turn to get our butts kicked. Maybe not. Hopefully not. But if we do, then that'll just motivate us even more. And this is how we all push each other forward, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love it.
I guess sorry, quick note here, because the Battle of Alberta, I guess it is something that's important to both of us. And I mean, I'm a native Calgarian. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I just think it's very interesting that it's translated over to FAB, and it is somewhat true, although we're not spilling each other's blood in the middle of the rink or anything like that. Not yet, anyway.
Just metaphorically.
I guess. Do you notice? I guess, Andrew, you had some experience in Magic. Was it like this in Magic as well? Like, did the various scenes like support each other in this way, or was it a little bit more broken up, I guess, into teams of other types or individuals?
It was a little more broken up. Certainly, the Edmonton community and the Calgary community were also pretty close and pretty good friends, but it was a lot more like clique-ish, where everyone was just in separate Facebook group chats, and everyone had their big friend groups, whether it was 4 to 8 or 30 people, and everyone just kind of stayed in their spheres. And you could tell when there was a huge face-to-face event, everyone was very happy to see each other from around the province, but it didn't feel as close and like family-like as ours does. And then there wasn't Discord so much back in that time. I don't know when Discord started, but it wasn't as like alive and active as the Alberta Flesh and Blood Discord is. Just now I'm starting to see a huge group of my Alberta Magic friends have created a testing server for the circuits and the events that they're traveling, and it's starting to become very active, and they're talking more about team play and getting together, streaming games, helping each other, coaching each other, that kind of stuff. But that wasn't there so much beforehand when I was playing, or people would just play Magic the Gathering online themselves or with 1 or 2 friends.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, the thought of multiple Facebook group chats, it just sounds horrific at this point, where Discord exists. I don't know why people would do that, but yeah. All right.
Shifting from regional play to online, Adam, I have a question specifically for you. You've been especially active in the FAB online sphere with your involvement in initiatives such as the FAB Team Cup. In your opinion, where do events like that fit into the broader FAB ecosystem?
As FAB Team Cup, we know it now. We've done 1 season of already, and I got to get an opportunity to be. I guess where I'm at now is I'm the lead. I'm fully in charge of the production side of things. If anybody who's listening is familiar with the previous season of FAB Team Cup, we did the production of just kind of trying to make it some form of an experience for the viewer, from the sense of you get to sit down and see your favorite player, or cheer for a team or something like that. Like, that was really how I viewed it. So I know I'm kind of straying away from the question a little bit, Shea, because for me at this point, I don't actually look at that event anymore from the perspective of, how does this fit into the competitive circuit? Because the reality is it doesn't right now. With the last season of FAB Team Cup we did, the players were highlighted. I got to participate in it from Andrew. Well, Felix, you were on our team this year as well. We got to participate it from the sense of being in a team, and from that perspective, it was purely for bragging rights. It was a lot of fun to be part of the team and approach the competitive aspect of Flesh and Blood from this angle that you don't normally think of. Normally it's what deck am I bringing, what am I doing to win the event, versus this was how do we win as a team. But beyond that, like I said, it's not a big deal on the pro circuit players' radar right now, because the stakes aren't there, unfortunately. And that's where, at the end of the day, they're all really good sports, and they do recognize that we're trying to grow something here. Like, me and the other people who are involved in the managerial chain. There's about there's 2 or 3 of us build the brand, and we need to work on the initiatives that. Well, that's where I come back to. I mentioned the word fans, and it's a season starts, and you can maybe even, my pipe dream for this is maybe you can even, if we can get enough people on the same page where we can, I can maintain some form of an off season something where you can keep tabs on which players on which team. Maybe a team made a trade, so we can once again, the vision is, maybe I can get it to a point where we can actually have real-time stats reporting on the Fab Foundry website, where we can have something even like a fantasy league or something. Like fans can you draft their own team and follow their points and see, who ends up on top at the end of the season. I don't like the sky's the limits. But yeah, so long-winded way of saying that if we can secure it the right way, it could grow into just something so cool.
Thank you for that.
So both of you are competitive players with competitive aspirations, and I guess I'm just wondering, Andrew, how do you stay sharp? Are you part of a team? Do you take advantage of online resources? Do you mostly practice locally? How does that work?
I don't do it too much. Part of it is, I guess, when I have a really clear-cut focus, like I'm going to be traveling soon, I want to be prepping for something, the newest set has come out and the meta's kind of clearing up or becoming established, I will, play a Talishar game on my lunch break at work every day. And for the local armories, I will usually ask someone if they want to come early or stay late. Maybe we can jam a couple games. And then getting closer to the event, I look for some people online and ask them if they want to practice certain matchups.
All right, so you mostly keep it local, a little bit of Talishar and all of that.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself competing? I mean, there's been a lot spoken and a lot of content created lately about teams like the Wolfpack, Runaways. We know all of those teams are testing pretty hard. That they have a lot of great players on them. I guess how do you think we can compete, or players like you can compete against that, I guess?
That's also really tough to answer. That's, I think, one of the main reasons, like I was saying earlier, why sometimes I'm showing up to these events and I kind of haven't seen the secrets they've discovered a week in advance. But sometimes it kind of ends up with them shooting themselves in the foot too, where they all pivot to the best deck that they just discovered 2 days before the event, and they're scrambling to find the cards, and they run to a different deck and play it without very much practice or reps on the deck. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer your question without joining one of those top tier teams like the Wolfpack, for example. They're just winning almost everything they play right now, or getting, 2 or 3 or 4 of their members in the top 8 of this and that, and the Pro Tour at the same time as the calling that's going on at the same time. Like, it feels like they're pretty untouchable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any testing group, any community can form their own norms, their own meta almost. And you're right. We see it happening all the time. People get too clever, too smart. They outsmart themselves. They're playing at level 10 when everyone else is on level 3, and
Yeah.
that's not where you need to be on. Do you see yourself wanting to, I guess, broaden your scope of practice beyond what you're doing right now, like playing locally, just to gain some of that insight, or do you think you'll be able to find that success just by continuing to take the same approach as you're doing right now?
I do wish I had more of a focused team, kick me in the butt and make me practice type atmosphere. But I think I need a really specific vibe or person or group where things do move along kind of quickly, and we kind of having fun or keeping it entertaining is kind of a top priority of the group. I don't want to be sitting there going through the blueprints, chalkboard out, taking the notes, just bored out of my mind taking a very analytical, sciencey, like regimented, like grumpy approach to it. I do think I get a lot from playing a couple games with someone that I find I vibe really well with or have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, that speaks to me as well. That speaks honestly to how we approach preparation for tournaments here, even though it's a lot lower stakes in a way. Although there's a lot more pride on the line, I guess, for our tier 2 events here in Alberta. It's at the end of the day, it has to be fun, right? If it's not enjoyable at the level we want to compete, it's not worth doing, at least for me. If I was going for the big prize, I was counting on it, then maybe something would change there. I guess, Adam, do you have anything to add to that, or do you have any different thoughts on preparation?
I guess just a bit of maybe a different perspective, and to your point, Felix, you make this comment of like, if you're going for the big prize or not, and I think perspective on what the goal is kind of the first step for me in this at this point, where if the goal was like, win Pro Tour, win World, something like that. And, I do believe if we mentioned a group like the Wolfpack or the Runaways or something like that, some of that intent that is the goal. They're like, they will sit down and not even pompously, but just genuinely say, okay, this is where we believe we're at skill wise. And the goal is, let's top 8, a tier 4 event. So then, once you establish the goal there, you now need to look at it from in my opinion, the perspective of what does it take to get there. And, Andrew mentions the idea of, the chalkboards and all the metrics and all that. And at this point, I don't disagree with Andrew that, you gotta keep it fun. You gotta find some way to make it enjoyable, but it's also, I do always come back to this idea of how badly do you want it, and when we do acknowledge those the Michael Hamiltons or the guy Matthew Fowkes or guys like that at this point, there is a sickening work ethic to that end of how do we dissect this thing to a level that no one else understands. And even actually on the combat chain, we had Michael Hamilton on for an episode where we one of the questions we spoke about was, how do you set yourself up for that level of success? How do you win I think he'd just come off winning Nats at that point. I can't remember if we'd had the conversation before or after he won Worlds, but there was even from his aspect this acknowledgement of, yes, there's always an element of luck with TCGs. Now, I think one of the things that attracts me to Flesh and Blood above other TCGs is that variance is maybe not quite as there, where if you know how to enact your game plan properly, the variance plays out in such a way where most often you should have the favor. But Michael Hamilton acknowledged this idea of giving yourself that best edge. In part, comes down to having the best, game plan across the board. It's having that that recognition of what are the threats and how am I truly prepared for all of them, and how do I enact my game plan as well as possible, which then comes down to this idea of, I am committing probably a few hours a day, every day. And, to some extent, we do have to acknowledge this aspect of, fun versus what are we doing to really push ourselves to get there. Now, with that being said, like, I'm not there at this point, and I'm okay with that because, in part, there's acknowledgement for myself that I've been down the path of trying to do that, and I think, if at some point down the road the circumstances line them up in such a way where that now found myself amongst a group of people where we were having these conversations of, we're all on the same page, we're all gonna do this to this level, I would meet everybody at that level, because for me that's that drive of I find that process enjoyable to some extent. I enjoy that level. It comes back to this idea of mastery. For me, that is a pleasant pursuit, but it's it's acknowledging that it's not an easy path, and it's a lot of work to do, and in turn it's all this to say that that's where I said, I guess at the beginning, what's the goal? Because I view it as, if your goal is fun above all else, then absolutely do what you want to do and just, enjoy the process versus, then we're starting to go, okay, we want to win a local pro quest. Well, then we need to start applying an element of, what does my local meta look like? Who are the contenders? What are they likely to bring? How do I approach and prepare and approach this? And, then you scale as such, if we get into, like for me, I do have some intention to try to make a push to top 8 Nats this year. So in turn, now that we're getting all these spoilers for Dust to Dawn, the focus is, where can I find ways to step it up? How do I try to get myself ready for that? But it's, I think scaling, I guess scaling is for the goal is probably the takeaway there is, it's, if you're not aiming for the stars, you don't need to push yourself to that extent.
All right. No, thanks a lot. Well, that was a lot of really insightful answers about being more of a competitive player and being leaders of your community up in Edmonton, which we've talked about a lot here in the IP2 podcast. So Shea and I really want to thank you for being our guests here on this episode. I guess any closing statements or shout outs for anyone out there? I guess Andrew, you want to go first?
I don't really have anything.
All right. Adam?
I honorable mention to the combat chain. It's near and dear to my heart. If you're aware of it, if you were a fan of it in the past, please know I do have intents to keep things going there. It's just kind of in that phase of recollecting my life to kind of figure out how to tackle the next part of the this project I want to tackle. But beyond that, FAB Team Cup. If you're looking to, I think I was chatting with our commissioner Jesse. We're looking at probably starting somewhere after Nats for this season, but nothing's set in stone yet. I'm going to be all over all the Discords, all over Twitter, everywhere, blasting that thing once we know kind of what the takeoff looks like. So if you're looking to, have some fun, see some high level competition, you get to know the pro scene and people to cheer for, I'd love it if you come on the journey with us. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. I post things every once in a while at FAB TCG, and that's how you can keep up with me.
All right. And Andrew, do you have any social media, or do you prefer to be in the shadows?
No, I've got nothing.
All
but
right.
I will just say, thanks for having us, guys. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as always, you can find us on the IP2 podcast, IP2 podcast at Twitter, IP2 podcast on YouTube, and IP2 podcast at wraith.social on Mastodon. Adam, we need to put a timer on you.